right. The August 26, 2013 meeting of the Carlynton School Board of Directors is called to order. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have a student here? We do.
Three of them.
We do have.
The driver did it last year.
Yeah, we had the kids do it. I'd like to ask Ms. Hart if she would lead us. We expect that she'll be joining our board in December. So, Antrice, if you would, everybody would rise, and if you would begin and lead us in the pledge, whenever you're ready.
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Secretary will call the roll.
Director Wolf-Covia?
Here.
Director Sherpa?
She's not here today. She's
Director Hugan?
Here.
Director Apple?
here.
Director Shell?
Present.
Director Cicero?
Here.
Director Wilson?
Here.
Director Shriver?
Here.
Director Russo?
Here. We will turn now to public comment. The public is invited at this point to comment on typically on anything that's on the agenda, although at this point we only have a couple of folks, and I'll open it up. So if you'd like to address the board now, we have first Mr. Diulis. If you'd like to address the board.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Greg Diulis. I have two daughters in the school, Abby Diulis, who's going to be a sophomore, and Hannah Diulis, who's going to be a freshman this year. And the reason I'm here today, Abby played last year, and Hannah probably would like to play this year softball within the Carlynton School District. And what we have heard most recently is that there is no high school softball coach at this time. And unlike a lot of other districts, the fall time period is a time when teams can get their progress made as far as off-season workouts and conditioning and getting themselves situated for the upcoming season, much like the football team does their spring workouts and the basketball team does their summer conditioning camps and things of that nature. And I'm here simply to ask, as an interested parent, is there any plan going forward for hiring a coach for the softball team for the school?
Well, I'd say, speaking for the board, I don't believe that it's been our intention to eliminate the softball program. So I'm not sure where we stand. I turned to our superintendent.
Well, I'm glad you brought this to our attention. It's certainly something I'll bring up with Nate Wilson to discuss the position. I'm sure with everything else going on, maybe that might be something that got by. But I will certainly talk with him about it and see where we are.
It would be our intention to fill any vacancy in the softball coaching roster.
Is there a vacancy now?
I don't know of one. But I don't know everything. So
Who on the school board runs the athletic?
no one. We don't. Well, the administration
There's
runs
currently
it.
no one listed under softball for a head or assistant girls varsity softball.
But
one is-
that doesn't. But
That doesn't mean that.
Right, I'm
Yeah.
just saying that right now there's
They
currently
just
no
haven't
one
been
listed.
approved.
Right. So there's currently no
Yeah.
one listed, but
Greg,
that's
let's take a look. I mean, I think it may
that's
just simply
typically a
be.
case,
Well, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, we're going to have the softball program. We're going to continue on. If there's a vacancy, we're going to fill it. I think because all of us are a little caught by surprise. Maybe
So was I.
maybe there is no vacancy. But what happens is these are one-year contracts, so they have to be renewed. But just because the contract hasn't been renewed yet, doesn't mean that we're not going to have the continued coaching, the same people in place there.
And I'm displaying my ignorance because I don't know when the next time that this would come up. Are we a month away? Because the month of September is the time when you can get a whole lot of work done for these kids when you have weather that will accommodate that.
You're familiar with the coach from last season?
Yes.
And he
was told by the athletic director that they were opening up the position.
Okay, this
I
is,
remember that. That's been shared with us.
okay.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
remember. So he would be in the process of.
Right.
And I think that individual can reapply.
Right, but this sort of pattern is not, from what I notice and remember of athletics and the positions, this sort of situation is not uncommon, where the slot is not filled on paper, but the coaches are working towards getting someone, and someone comes in, and then everything is in place, and the season goes on.
So the coaches are working toward getting someone, or
The
The athletic director.
athletic director.
With the athletic director is working to get the coaches in line. So the athletic director is working, and so, I'm never in depth in this process, but from the pattern that I noticed is that, you'll see empty slots, but the athletic director is working toward getting the coaches in line, and then at the beginning of the year, it seems like, things aren't in place, but really, the process is in place, and we just, at this level, aren't aware of it, because the athletic director is the main.
And I know you have a lot more business that's more pressing and more important than this question, but I would like to know an answer. When is the next time that I should come before this board to say?
Why don't you, if you could touch base with Mr. Pfeiffer later on in this week, and with your contact information, he will then be able to have a way to contact you once he has something to report to you. We don't need to wait till the next school board meeting. Let's take a look, because you make a very good point that we all appreciate, that we all agree with.
And I'm just saying that, in terms of my experience, this is not a cause for alarm if the situation seems this way. It's that the athletic director is doing what the athletic director needs to do, but absolutely talk with the superintendent and the athletic director to get more detailed answers to that question, because at this level right now, we don't have that information because we weren't prepared to answer that today. But it's not. But this is often, from what I remember at the beginning of the year, seeing that things aren't always exactly where you would like them to be at this point. But
Give Gary a call, and we'll get you the answers you're looking for. Entree's Heart? Good. You're good. All right. Anyone else at this point?
Jack.
Yes?
I'm Jack Kapistik from Carnegie, and I just wanted to say that I see on here that you have on the agenda to award professional employee contracts to Mrs. Mary Campbell and Ms. Julie Lewis. And I just want to say that those two teachers have been a joy to work with. They are very dedicated, and I think they're more than deserving of professional employee contracts. And I think the district gets much more back from them than what their salary dictates. So on a personal level, I really appreciate working with both those teachers, and I think Mrs. Hudson will back that up. They're tremendous teachers, very dedicated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anything else? There being nothing else, we will move on now to approval of the minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the August 12th, 2013 voting meeting.
So moved.
There is a
Second.
motion. Is there a second? There is a second. Any discussion on the minutes? There being none, we will vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstention?
Abstain.
Abstain because you guys weren't at the meeting. Okay? So 2 abstentions. Motion passes. We'll move on to reports. We had an executive session. This board had an executive session prior to this meeting in which we discussed personnel and legal issues. Yes. With that, I'll turn to our superintendent and the administrative reports. Mr. Pfeiffer?
Yeah. As everybody knows, with the renovations that have been going on, our work crews and contractors have been putting in double time to get the buildings up and ready. We sent a letter out to the public so people understand the buildings are ongoing construction sites, and that there's going to be some things at the elementaries that parents should expect to see, such as ceiling tiles that are missing, floor tiles that have been put up that aren't replaced yet. The board is working to get some carpet in some of the areas to help make that a little more friendly for the students. In the summertime, earlier in the summer, we did have some asbestos abatement that took place in the buildings. The buildings have been inspected. They've been HEPA-vacked and cleared for occupancy by the county. So they are safe to enter for the children. People have been really hustling to put in extra time. And teachers, they deserve a lot of credit as well, because they've been staying extra hours, wiping down their furniture, wiping down some of their own materials. And rather than wait for maintenance to come and do some of these things, the teachers taking some initiative and doing things that they want to see ready, because their first concern is the kids and what the kids are coming back to. And I really appreciate everybody's effort and patience and understanding, especially the administrative team, Dr. Maslick and Mrs. Hudson, who had to come up to the high school for the bulk of the summer while their offices are being torn up. You know, you can't build Rome in a day. And with the age of the buildings, some of the things that came up, it's taken a little bit longer to do some of these renovations with the air conditioning, with the heating. They just laid a new floor down at Carlynton to replace the boiler. They're replacing the boiler at Carnegie. The cassettes that are the air conditioning cassettes, which are like heat pumps, are in all the ceilings. I was down at Carnegie today going through with Mr. Pisano. I plan to get over to Carlynton tomorrow to walk through. John Hayes was gracious enough to lead the board through a walkthrough Thursday night, because I think it is important that people see what's going on. And remember, this is all taking place in the span of 2.5 months, which really isn't a lot of time. But you know, I think people have done their best to try to get that ready for instruction for the kids. And while it isn't like it was when they left, people have to keep in mind, once we get the boilers, once we get the air conditioning in, and these are up and running, and along with some other improvements we're looking at, including technology upgrades, the wireless access points, Director Shriver and the folks from Aerohive, and Brian DeRica from the IU, who's our tech person. We met and planning out as the board passed Aerohive to install the wireless access points. So there's a lot of things occurring simultaneously to upgrade and improve the environment for the kids, the facilities, technology access to them, so we can do more. And then we get the air conditioning in, you know, hopefully we can utilize those buildings in the summertime, not just for student programs, but even for programs for seniors and programs for adults, because you'll be able to do more with the buildings. So though it's an inconvenience now and people are hustling to get things ready, you know, the end picture, you know, you can see, when you see a cassette in place in the ceiling, and you can see the new electric panels where they're replacing some ones that have been rusting out. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. So that's very exciting. You know, it's very exciting also. I know he's been making the rounds. He was at orientation last Wednesday. You know, if you recall, the board meeting we had, the board voted to hire Mr. Mike Loughran. I'd like to introduce and welcome Mr. Mike Loughran as the new high school principal. I know he's been hustling out there trying to meet with folks, everybody from cafeteria staff, custodians, teachers, and it's an exciting time to start off with some new leadership and a new vision for the direction of the high school. And we're excited to bring Mike here. And Mike, it's good to have you here tonight in the first of what I hope will be many, many board meetings to come. And with that, the next, since we talked about renovations, I'd like to turn it over to John Hayes from Thomas & Williamson to talk a little bit more in depth about some of the things I touched on.
Okay, I took it upon myself to lay a monthly progress report for each of the projects at your senior location, so I didn't have to waste a lot of time doing that. I'm sure you guys have a lot of things in that. As Mr. Piper stated, I walked through with some board members. I know some other board members have had a chance to walk through on their own. We have them in there, Carla, or JC's taking them. I think from the board's perspective, you see what's going on and you understand. I think the theme the last few weeks has been for not only your staff, which by the way is doing a fantastic job, and I stated that to the board members I walked through with the other night. The contractors that are doing this work, they typically do schoolwork too, so they know how important it is for the school to be ready to come back. So they're not in this to make a mess. A lot of the employees at school in the district here, some of the workers are from the district. So they have kind of a vested interest as well. With that said, the guys are working tonight. We kept some electricians throughout the day today and tomorrow to both schools to do some stuff. and there'll be a few there tomorrow. But they plan on an afternoon shift. They're gonna start between like 4 and 6 at night and work till midnight 2, sometimes 3 in the morning. So when the neighbors call the police, the lights are on, something, it's true. That's the schedule they're gonna work at. They do not start till, the majority of the students are gone. You guys have some special activities that take place out there, and our field people, myself, will work with the 2 principals in coordinating what rooms we're going to be in at night versus your after-school programs and things like that. So that coordination will be taking place. I'll go through these quickly. As always, if you take them home, read them, have any questions, get them to Gary or get them to me. I think most of you guys have my contact information. I'm always getting back to you as quick as possible, and I will answer any questions that you have.
As you're going through these, I think the one thing that's important, not only for the board, the teachers, the administration, and also for the public, give us the estimated completion dates as you end each one of these discussions.
Good.
Okay?
Yep, we can do that. Well, let's start with Carnegie. I believe that's the one I put on top.
Before we even go into that, though, just to kind of follow up from Ray, I think we're also talking about 2 things. One is work that's going to be done and complete by the time school starts, and then the other is additional work that will continue through the first part of the school year.
Right.
Right? So, to the first one, will we be ready on Wednesday for students?
Yes.
Okay. Will there be additional work that will be done when, in the evenings when the students aren't there, once school starts?
Absolutely.
Okay, and you'll elaborate on that as you go through.
I'll elaborate on that, and I'll start right now.
Okay.
At Carnegie, where we are in the schedule is, even with the little bit of additional work we did, we're right about where we wanted to be. Some of the electrical main components are lagging behind. It's kind of twofold, because we had to do some abatement work at the end of the building. We only had that one in the building on 12 days. And Duquesne Light is running a little behind, but they've had a crew there now Friday and then all day today. So they're making great progress too, which has opened up a lot of work for our electricians. As far as the classrooms, what's in the classrooms now, as Mr. Pfeiffer said, is you have the cassette units in the ceiling area. The ductwork is in the ceiling, and the majority of the piping is done at Carlynton. The insulation on the ductwork and a lot of the pipes are done at, Carnegie. The Carnegie, on the second floor, the units that we put in for the air conditioning and the air handling all have the power wiring run through them from the distribution boards. The ceiling tiles are put back in place on probably 99% of the second floor. We're doing control wiring and some control valving, which will take place at night. They'll be pulling ceiling tile in and out through the night, putting it back in through the day. When you get to the first floor in the basement, we have, they're putting the last few pieces of ductwork in the front of the building tonight. Tomorrow night, they're going to finish up in the basement and the back wing, putting that in. There's some insulation work that'll be ongoing at night, some piping, putting valves in. That'll be a typical night there. What we're going to do is work like 2 or 3 classrooms in there. During the day, we're going to have some men working in the boiler rooms and a little bit of roof work that we don't want to do at night. It's just could be dangerous, so they'll be doing some of that work during the daylight hours. The kids won't see them. We've got all the clearances, the required clearances required for the men to be in the buildings. They'll be in the night. And let me reiterate, this has always been the plan. It was never the plan that we would have all the work done for the beginning of school. The goal has always been to try and have some air conditioning units running. When school comes back, or shortly after, we still think we're going to hit that within a few weeks, definitely by the end of September, having air conditioning. And you're gonna have days you're gonna need it. You're gonna have days in the upper floors where it's gonna work. The heating is never anticipated that the heating will be on or be functional before October 15th. I want to be clear about that. So the work has always been planned to go into the end of October, the first week or so of November. And we're right on schedule with that right now. Okay, and that holds true at Carlynton too. The schedules parallel each other. So that's where we're at on those two projects. Carnegie, like I said, the teachers, the students, the staff, every morning will see something new being completed. They will come back to more ceiling tile being put in. They're going to start to see thermostats, occupancy sensors, CO sensors put on the walls, things like that, as we move toward the complete operation of systems. They're installing cabinet unit heaters today. Cabinet unit heaters go in your entrances, your stair towers, they provide the heat for that. All the boiler room equipment is in the boiler room at Carnegie. It's sitting there, ready to be put in place. We don't have any procurement issues. So I think we're right where we wanted to be at Carnegie. Is there any questions on Carnegie?
Just one quick one. I appreciate your positioning of what we expected to have done and where we think we're at, and we're within reason of being close to being that. I also appreciate the walkthrough last week. It helped to crystallize things in my own mind. I think the realization for me, and maybe others, was that it was a little surprising to see ceiling tiles not being in place. And from your perspective, that was a natural byproduct of having to put heating equipment in and the piping in to support the heating equipment. And I guess I didn't realize that by not having heating equipment done until the middle of October, it might mean that there are going to be ceiling tiles not in place. So
you're correct. It is a byproduct of the renovation of the HVAC system.
yeah.
And we look at it two ways. We could have the contractors build a ceiling tile back in every night, but then they're going to spend an hour or two a night sliding it out of the way, then sliding it back. And they're going to create more dirt and dust doing that. And I think a lot of people walk through, the ceilings aren't dirty. There's no dirt coming down. They're not. We HEPA back that whole school. There's just no debris there. Above the ceilings, below the ceilings, that school is spotless. Now they're dragging in some dirt and stuff inside, moving furniture, opening boxes, and everybody's cleaning that up. So, yeah, where the ceiling tower out is where they're going to put some pipe in, do some insulation, things like that, where work's got to be done. As they complete it, put the ceiling tower in. We put all the ceiling tower in everywhere that we wouldn't have to be moving anything out.
So for construction novices like myself, and maybe for parents or students or whatever who aren't used to seeing it, or teachers who aren't used to seeing it, just the getting used to looking up and not seeing a drop ceiling takes some getting used to, and that's something we, I guess with Mr. Pfeiffer and the principals helping the teachers and then themselves seeing that and overcoming that and realizing, okay, we've got a larger goal here. Ideally, we'd like to have ceiling tiles in place, but there are specific reasons we don't, and hopefully very quickly, within a couple of weeks, that'll start to slowly close in.
And along the same lines, the floor tiles as well. There are places where there's missing floor tile, and particularly for the entryways to both buildings, because we are planning the captured vestibules, and that it might go out to bid soon for construction over next summer. But those entryways are going to seem a little incomplete, because they are incomplete because of the additional work that we are planning long term. So, you know, when you walk into the buildings, it's not going to look when you have the idea of renovation in your mind, you're going to walk in and it's not going to look like that right now because we're still in the process. And it can take you a little bit back, but we are aware of what it looks like. But the ceilings were remarkably, and it was very interesting to see without the ceiling tiles. And but they're very clean. The flooring, we're going to have to figure out ways to manage that. And we're talking to Mrs. Hudson on Thursday during the tour about the rubber mats that are going to be placed in the entryways, and probably a similar situation at Crafton to keep, more, the black rugs
Yeah,
and
we
things like
always
that.
have
Yeah, and you always have that.
Set in.
Right.
Yeah.
Walk off now.
Right.
I guess the, might be the right word, is a refocus of everybody's attention that what we're doing is an HVAC project. We're not doing a renovation of the schools. We did a de-renovation by taking things apart, and now we're putting what was there back together. We're going to do a small renovation, which is an office relocation. We're looking at going out to bid in December and do that work next summer, over the summer, get it done and get out of there. But there was no shape or form of a renovation at these two schools. It's just not. I think a lot of people come in thinking that was what they were going to see. It's not what was being done.
Well, that was our intent at one point, but
Right.
due to
Right now.
scheduling and bidding process and the general contractor's not.
Timing window.
Right.
Well, and our focus has been on HVAC and enclosed vestibules.
Correct.
And for safety and new doors and all that work's done. I mean, we're not doing a wholesale renovation, but we've done a tremendous amount of work in all three locations so far, and we will do it again next summer.
Right, and the focus, and what people need to understand, our focus, when we were in there doing abatement of certain areas, it was smart for the district just to do the floor tile in the rooms that they're going to be renovating, in the office relocation and secure vestibule, because they have to contain them areas. And it wouldn't have made sense to not do them and then have to start that process over again. That's the whole lot of it. Yeah, that was a very good.
May I ask a question? Back down to Carnegie. This abatement, asbestos abatement number, the original contract was 60,000 and it has jumped up to 147? Did you find a lot of surprises?
That the abatement that we did find at the end of that, yes.
You want to talk to us about that?
We did all that. I can't go over it again.
Well, I just wanted to know,
There was a lot of paint wrap. There was, above the ceilings that we taken out, and a lot of debris that we taken.
is there going to be any residual health problems to staff and children as a result of that being there?
Not that I'm aware of, but you had ceilings, all this stuff had been above the ceilings, which were not pleasant spaces, there's no air movement. It was like being in your attic. If you just have a roof vent in your attic and your air conditioning is not drawing the air out of your attic, which you're not doing, that's no more different than what we had here. What you had here at either school.
The presence, as I understand it, of asbestos is not a danger.
Right.
It's when it becomes airborne that it
Correct.
becomes a danger.
Correct.
And it was contained in essence at
Yes.
Carnegie, but it was removed out of an abundance of caution. We're doing the work anyway.
Right.
Let's just get it out of there.
And, yeah, and David's right. When we went in and started moving ceiling tile because we had workers going up in there, it would have got moved around. So we didn't want that to happen. So we did the additional abatement because of that. If you would have went in there and painted and done this and done that, nobody would ever touch it. It'd still be there.
Because at that point, the threat would have been to the workers, not our students, but the workers who were disturbing and
You're absolutely
creating their,
correct, Myra.
so.
The problem would have occurred with the workers, never the students and never the staff.
Right, because they're not in there. It's the workers who are disturbing it, and so for their benefit, you have to abate, because if we want to have the work done, they have to disturb it, but they need to abate it in order to work there.
You have no migration in your building.
Any other
Thank you for
questions?
explaining
Oh,
it.
anything else on Carnegie then? Let's move on to Crafton.
I believe you have some change orders, I guess.
Yeah,
Should
yeah.
move on later.
Well, yeah, I thought you had moved on to Crafton before. Do you want to cover
Well,
those?
do you want to do them all at once?
Whatever, I'll follow your lead, brother.
I see that.
Whatever you want to do.
Let's just do them all at the end. and then-
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, the Carnegie, we're done, we'll go over the change orders as a group because it's coupled for,
Okay.
coupled for. In Crafton, the putback of the school, or the placing the classrooms back in the conditions that the students returned, hasn't been as difficult. Because we didn't have to tear all of the ceiling off. We didn't have to move all the furniture out of the classrooms, and into the gym, and into the auditorium. It's been tough, it's not easy. Districts aren't used to doing it, the teachers aren't used to doing it, but it's gone a lot smoother just because it hasn't been as expensive. We're basically in the same position there. The configuration of the system's a little different. We have 3 rooftop air handlers versus 7 interior ones at Carnegie. All the penetrations in the roof are done, curbs are in, ready for that equipment to come in. We will set that equipment on a Saturday. We'll never have a crane there, never be working over kids' heads, stuff like that. So we pull a crane in on a Friday because lots of times it's hard to get a permit to pull a crane in on a Saturday. We're not going to lift anything over students' heads. The work will be done on the Saturday. But again, all the cassettes are in all the classrooms there. The ductwork is about 98% complete. Next, we got to put the insulation wrap, and that's where we let the ceiling tiles out to craft. The insulation, the remaining pipe. A little less invasive because we are going to the roof with 3 main runs. At Carnegie, we had pipe going all over the place. So, a little different system there. Schedule-wise, same thing. Main electrical, the playgrounds have been poured, covered the ductwork, asphalt's been placed, we sealed the joints today. We want to get the transformer pad in and the ductwork into the electrical room. We're going to close that, cover that up, and then give JC back that playground area so for a week or so here. We're going to keep the kids on the front end and we'll turn it over. Like we said, the removal of the floor tile and stuff only happened in the main office. A small band at the main entrance is just about a 3-foot wide section of one classroom. That's all we have there. So you don't have that bare floors, all that kind of stuff. And again, your district personnel, it was waxing, cleaning, you know, it'll be a pretty typical first day. Any questions?
Well, JC, maybe you'd be better able to answer this. I know the kids, the upper class, line up typically in the big playground. What are they going to do this year until the playground is finished?
We're just making an adjustment to the small playground and keeping as many students there as we can, but we will have some students at the front side of the building, sort of like where the Cougar walkway is.
Gotcha.
And right now, we're just trying to figure out how to staff those areas so that we can have proper supervision.
Great, thanks.
Okay, again, as soon as they do pay Lincoln's and feeds, we'll get that, we'll get the fence up around the new equipment.
John, if I could ask quickly, you talked about deadlines, or somebody had asked about establishing thoughtful timelines on things. Is there a rough estimate you could provide for both elementary schools to say, roughly by X date, 99% of the ceiling tiles should be back in place. And then there was one question that came up about airflow. The cassettes themselves may not be operational at either school on Wednesday because the new electricity's not done. But will we have airflow in either school or both schools? And if so, when will we have airflow, some kind of circulation?
Okay, what you have, Crafton is a whole different setup than Carnegie. I'll go over Crafton. In Crafton, your air handlers, you only had an air handler in your auditorium. And you had windows and stuff in everywhere else. You weren't running air handlers per se, to heat there or to dry air in. Where the univents were pulling air in, that's getting replaced with the rooftop air handlers. The windows will work for that now. So by the end of September at Crafton, the new air handlers will be up and running. You're going to be able to close your windows and bring in condition there, like the system is set up. The cassettes themselves do not provide fresh air. They're cooling and heating. The rooftop air handlers are what bring the fresh air in, which mixes in a VAV box in the ductwork, and it tempers itself, dehumidifies itself, puts humidity in, whichever you need. That'll all be up and running by September. But it's really no change from what you had.
So in Crafton, airflow will be provided by opening windows,
Opening windows.
As always.
which was typical.
Which is typical.
Okay.
And then Carnegie's.
Carnegie, we have 7 individual air handling units in the school. We have one in the art room. The art room, the one in the art room feeds the basement area. It's your art room, there's 2 classrooms.
Cafeteria.
Well, no, it's just that one end of the school where you go into the boiler room. That will be operational for the first day of school.
Okay.
That will be bringing fresh air in. You'll have exchanges of air for the first day of school. The library, not the first day of school, the next day or after that.
Okay.
Probably, we're hoping for the first day. Same way with the cafeteria. Them units are in, they're running the power wire tonight. All the breakers are to be here, they're being UPS'd here. So you will have new air.
Fresh air.
Fresh air being brought into your basement.
Wonderful. And so most of it first day of school.
We'll definitely have the end where the classrooms are.
Okay.
The library will be.
A day or two later.
Yeah,
maybe.
and
Okay.
same with the cafeteria.
Okay.
Upstairs, that was a steam system. Again, the only fresh air you had was
Windows. So it's convection.
Yeah,
just- okay.
that's it. So as we go here over the next month, the same thing. The remaining ones will be turned on as we go, and we'll be bringing the fresh air in.
But the important thing to note is that the areas which wouldn't naturally have good airflow, which would be the basement, because
Right.
lack of windows,
Yes.
we do have air handlers cycling air through those spaces within the first day or two of school.
You will have something down there you never had.
Okay,
The first day of school, that one end of the building, it will be operational.
wonderful, okay. Carl, you can deliver that.
I've been delivering.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Next, these next ones, I'll just go over the track real quick for you. They started paving today. They paved the run-ups for the triple jump and long jump. They're preparing to do the track and the high jump run-up area. They're really believing that they'll have, and I do too, if we don't get the bad storms Wednesday, we should have all the base in by the end of the week. With that said, the shot put and discus circles, throw pads, they've been poured. The pads for the bronze and discus, you get the safety cage on. The foundations have been poured for that, there's a sleeve, and then there's some stanchions that go in there with a netting. So if the weather holds up here for Wednesday, we should have the base down at the binder, then they'll do the wearing course. That has to set for like 15 or 20 days, then we'll get the road on. But by the end of September, the track should be
100% done, meaning that
They'll have the
if
lines
someone
on
was
there.
so inclined, they could go for a run October 1st on that track.
John, a question about the track, just looking at the photos you provided. Are we getting a better constructed track than the original? I don't know what the original was, but I know we had, someone had put down a surface on top.
Yeah, Betsy, I'm not gonna say that it's better or good. Let me put it this way, because I don't know exactly what you had there, who the company was and what material it was. What we've done is we put new under drains under the track. I'm gonna say the binder course that we're gonna put in is probably about what you had. I don't know what surface you had before, so I can't say, and I don't know how long it had.
Long time.
Yeah, I think.
No,
a
10
long
years or
time.
so. It was almost.
But I'll tell you what we're putting in that you didn't have. You see the stone base that we're putting in now? You didn't have that. That's what causes your problems. You were just, really, your asphalt was sitting on dirt.
So basically you created a strong foundation, which is critical in a lot of
We gave you the
things, and then
foundation for that.
to build on.
So from saying that, I'd say what you're getting here overall, if you were to cut a section through it, is 100%.
And 6 lanes, correct?
Exterior doors, I believe, on that. Where we are, all of the exterior doors are ordered. All the hardware is ordered. First thing we're going to do is to capture the vestibule at the high school. That'll be the first order of business. We are looking at, hopefully the first round of doors the third week of September. Okay, one thing they have done, we have all the rough-in electric to all the doors that are getting card readers. All that work has been done. We pulled the ceiling tunnel out, ran all that, that's all there. All the wires rolled up above the ceiling. So when the new doors come in, the new frames come in, we get them in, they can just pull the wires down into the frames and be ready to go. So we do have all that for it and ready to go. We get the new garage doors, you know, the whole thing. But we are gonna hit the places that you're getting card readers, like you're putting on entrances, cafeterias. We're gonna do all that. First order of business will be your security customers. On the classroom doors, they are actually gonna start next week. Should probably, like at Carnegie, it should be 3 evenings, and we should be done. At Crafton, it should be 3 evenings done. Here, it's gonna take about a week to do that. Now, what we wanna do is, we're gonna go in, so some teachers for a while, John, you know, for like a night, day and a half, they're gonna use their old key, then they're gonna come back in, we're gonna have to do the switch over to get them done. The new keys.
Question on the exterior hardware. When are we gonna get the equipment to make the cards? Is that something part of the package?
Yes, that's part of the package. Once they get everything in, whoever you guys designate to be the badge maker will have a training session.
Well, is the equipment, you say the equipment's on order, is that badge maker part of the equipment that's
Yes.
on order that's gonna come in a
Yes.
timely fashion?
Yep.
Okay. So that could be something that, well, as soon as it comes in, somebody could start to get training.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, if I recall, last time you guys talked, you may already have a database that has a lot of the information that you'll need to input to make this go. But we'll go, yeah, there'll be a training session.
And to add to that quickly, there is an internal process that we'll have to go through to understand how each group uses buildings, especially after hours, and figure out how we accommodate what parts of the building are open and who gets those keys. And I don't think it's rocket science, but just having gone through the process with other organizations, there's a learning curve to it, and we just have to figure out who does it and when we do it, and so.
Yeah, your learning curve will be what we see in a lot of districts. If you let the local youth basketball association use your gym, I don't know what your programs are. You give them a window to be able to get in for 15 or 20 minutes, the person with the key. Now, then they've got to monitor the door who's coming in. You know, just don't prop it up. You don't want them just to prop it up. No. When they leave, you'll know when they left. You'll know if they left at 10 o'clock at night or they left at midnight. If you gave them permission to use that gym from 6 to 8, you can go back. It'll tell you exactly when they left if they didn't leave till 11 o'clock.
I think that's a great point. So, for instance, if we have a basketball team or whatever team using a gym, traditionally the coach would go into the gym through a door, go into the gym, unpack their bag, and then slowly over the next half an hour, kids would filter in with their parents, walk through the building, go into that location, and that door would be open. So if that's not going to be the case now, are we asking the coach, if it's a single coach for 10 kids, are we asking that coach to stand at that door and let people in and then send kids into the gym by themselves? Or are we asking that organization to then have to bring 2 adults and have one at the door and one at the in location? Or what is our official policy? We have to think through those kinds of questions. It's not rocket science, but it's just different than what we've had for 60 years. So.
Yeah, there's actually going to be a switch on that door that if it, and I'm sure you will get there, you're not there yet, but as you move forward, you're going to be able to, that if it's open more than 5 minutes, you can set it to parameters, 5 minutes, 10 minutes along.
Right.
I mean, it has a capability. So, before you guys want to take as a board. Any other questions?
I did have one question about, one of the change orders was a new exterior access door at Crafton.
Yes.
Where did that go?
We're it's behind Crafton, I'm not sure which of the, but that's.
I don't know. I don't know if it has a name.
The no-named alley. What it is, you currently had a steel-plated or steel-framed door that took 3 men and a boy to open. We're going to put a nice new Bilko door there, because the way we're doing it, that's how you're going to get everything in and out of that boiler room every year. So there's really no sense in putting an old, rusted-up steel one. It doesn't have a arm on it anymore. It doesn't have a spring on it. It's just, so we're going to put you a new Bilko door.
Okay, thank you.
We're putting all new concrete, all that in there, so you're silly about that. So that gets us to the change orders. I don't know if you had them all on one sheet. We'll stay at Crafton. There's the one for the new Bilko doors, $5,300.98. And another one was for some additional floor tile removal. And that was $7,225. And we did that in the locations where we did the penetrations up to, we took up blocks of floor tile mass. That's the two for that. At Carnegie, you'll see the first one there on page 8 was demolish and dispose of the risers in the music room. It's $3,882. And we had discussed this before, the abatement of the floor tile in all the rooms that are going to be part of the office relocation, secure vestibule renovation project next spring. that's $13,572.50.
John, didn't you mention at the walkthrough that had we waited and done this as a separate project at the time of the secured vestibule, it would have cost us approximately,
Our estimated cost is $30,000. Since the contractor was already mobilized there, had a lot of containment up already, you save all that money, and now we do that a second time next year.
So that kind of wipes out that.
The next two are for the new ceiling tile. There's one for $14,361.25, and there's one for $13,226.63. I will tell you, that's about half of it. That's about half. There's going to be about another $26,000 as we go through here. I'll get with Gary, and we'll do it in two sections like we did before. But these guys wanted to get it ordered. They got this stuff the next day, so we wanted to get as much in there as we could.
now on the ceiling tile, was that being replaced because of age and damage?
All the ceiling tile went out into this asbestos.
So that was really,
Had to go.
And it was bad. It was so.
and I was going to say, most facilities, you have some kind of program with ceiling tile replacement, so we haven't done it, so it was going to have to happen down there.
Yeah, I mean, you could go up to the second floor there and see the difference. And again, when we do the renovation project, we will rewrite some of the things we had in there now that included new ceiling tile because you have it already. So you won't have to buy ceiling tile in the next project for those rooms. So, yeah, you take money from there.
Now, I had a question about the risers. Now, this might have been covered last meeting, and I wasn't here for that. We're going to demolish and dispose of them. Is there a replacement aspect?
No.
It's in the music room, where we're going to make it two separate classrooms. Now it's all just flat now.
Okay, so
that was going to happen in the next project, but now it already happened, so they're just removed. That's when we were debating on putting the kindergarten classroom in.
Okay,
so that's why. So it's a good thing. It's for the future in that sense.
Okay.
Yeah, that's another item that we did now while we were in there doing demolition work that would have had to occur next
go around
before we could get over and do the actual renovation. So we did it.
And if that was a repeat, thank you.
Just a quick question on that. Do we need to save those risers and put them in? Okay. Do we need risers for?
No, we have risers that the mobile
portable ones. Okay.
Yeah, that we use.
We're saying risers, but I think when these were built like 1954,
They're just steps.
they were
Bunkers.
coming out.
They're bunkers, yeah.
Yeah, these were something that was built into the school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it took,
We actually just got new risers donated,
it took a lot to get them.
so we have that they're on the stage.
Excellent.
And then I believe we have one for the track. $2,500. Yeah, $2,500. And what that was, when we surveyed and shot the elevations of the track, and it never affected any 100-meter times, the track actually on the back end ran downhill about 1.5 feet. If you look at that far end, you can see where we raised it, but the far end, like towards the backstop, I believe that's a real softball field area, that track around the bend from the end of the 100 meters to about 1/4 of the way up the backstretch was 1.5 feet lower than the rest of the track. So we raised that up, reading into drains there, you're good. So if you ever have somebody like break a high school record, take them out, they will check that this contract will certify your tracks, meets the standards and all that kind of stuff.
Excellent. Questions for John? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll be voting on the change orders a little later in the meeting. We can discuss anything then if we need to, but I think we're all pretty clear on that.
Pay for that?
Does anyone have any questions on the change orders? If not, I don't think we
All
do.
right, thank
John,
you all very
thanks for
much.
coming.
Thanks, John.
All right. We'll continue on with the administrative.
Mr. Christie?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
This is Mumford.
The advisory committee for the 21st Century Grant met, and the grant should be updated and submitted to the Department of Education by the end of this week. The people that we'll be partnering with have changed somewhat this year, so we intend to partner with a dance studio, a martial arts studio, and have our own chapter of Girls on the Run, which will be nice for the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. We have some teachers who have been trained in that now and can be employed through the program. So we'll have 3 different community-type activities available for students, as well as the tutoring and the meals that we'll have there. Hopefully, we'll also be partnering with Family Resources Agency to make the entire program larger, but we'll try to verify that tomorrow. So those will be our official partners for the grant. And we'll have partnership agreements signed by the end of the week and submitted to the Department of Education for approval.
Any questions? Thank you.
Mr. Mantich, could you update us a little bit on the school performance profile and when the district expects to get that?
Yes, I can. As of the 20th of last week, we received the notification that the waiver has been approved by the federal government for the flexibility. So AYP, as we know it now, will cease to exist. They're now going to adopt something called the Pennsylvania School Performance Profile. And the purpose of the Pennsylvania School Performance Profile is to provide a building level score for teachers as part of the educator effectiveness system. It's also to provide parents with a comparative measure for the school in our districts of residence, as well as neighboring schools and districts across the state, and to inform the public of the academic performance measures of each school, comprehensive CDTs, charter schools, and cyber schools in the district. Excuse me. The score is going to be based on now, instead of basically as it was before, thresholds of performance in math and reading. It's now going to be based on 5 categories. There's going to be indicators of academic achievement, indicators of closing achievement gap for all students in the building, indicators of closing achievement gap for something now is called the historically low performing students, indicators of academic growth, also known as PVOS, and other academic indicators such as graduation rates, promotion rates, and attendance rates. From what I gather, the academic achievement, or the test scores, is, if you will, proficient or advanced on PSSA, math, reading, science, and the Keystone exam. That's going to count now for about 40% of the total overall building score. The PVOS data is also going to account for about 40% of the overall building score. The indicators of the closing the achievement gap for all students and the historically low performing students is going to be a 10% rating towards the building. And then the other academic indicator is going to be the other 10%. Now, as the other system for AYP used to be, we used to have to make thresholds in all the different demographic areas, all the subgroups that we would have. Now, they've kind of lumped them all together in one big super subgroup called this historically low performing students. And they are going to consist of the economically disadvantaged subgroup, or the IEP subgroup, or the English language learners subgroup. So now, if you would qualify in any one of those 3 categories, they're only going to count one time in this historically low performing subgroup, for which we are going to be responsible for closing an achievement gap of about 50% of that gap within a 6-year period. So just to give you some idea what that means is, if our historic low performing students are progressing, let's say, at a proficiency rate of about 70%, they're going to subtract that from 100 and say we have a 30% gap between 100 and 70. They're going to divide that in half, which is going to be about 15%, and we have 6 years for which we have to close that gap. So they're going to divide that by 6, and it's going to be somewhere around 3.5% that we have to grow them every year for us to earn all the points necessary for those categories. They're going to do that again with the total overall body of students we have as well, that we have to close their achievement gap 50% over the next 6 years as well. So it's going to be kind of a different way of looking at how they're rating the schools in Pennsylvania now. And it's going to be rating on a scale of like 0 to 100. So now when you open up the report card, you might see a 90, 93, 88, which is pretty much a percentile. So when people look at it, they have an understanding of how well the schools are doing as opposed to the 100-point scale. That's what we have up at this point, and we're expecting to have our scores for the district. They're telling us sometime around the middle to the end of September. So we have, I think, one more phase of data verification, which we're going to do starting the 29th of August. And that will be the second of 3 phases. As soon as we complete those, I think we're going to go ahead and push out the scores across the state to see how we've done. Yes?
Question. You broke down the percentages. When this report comes out, will each one of these categories be also displayed as far as a composite, you know what I mean, to show your composite score, individual breakdowns within these categories of percentages?
I'm not sure how the website is going to be displayed. I know that when I said that there's economic, the indicators for academic performance is going to be 40%. When you start talking about the test scores in math, science, reading, and writing, I know right now that they are each counting right now for 7.5% of the total overall score. So they're going to be added. So how they're going to actually categorize those, we don't know.
I mean, I would expect it to look more like a report card more than a single percentage number, so you know what really the makeup of that is.
I have, right now, nobody really knows what that's going to be. The only thing I was made aware of was that the kind of the biggest item on the screen that you're going to see is going to be that number. So if you look at the top, I think the top left-hand corner of the screen is going to be, the largest thing you're going to see is that performance profile. So we're kind of waiting to see exactly what it looks like ourselves, because nobody really told us yet what it's exactly going to look like.
Other questions?
One quick question, and you may have said it and I may not have heard it, or we may not know yet, but do you have the sense of, are they going to be grading on the curve, if that's the right way to describe it, where they're trying to capture improvements or dropping of performance by a school and then give you a grade based on your effort or your outcomes? Or is it more of an absolute number to say, well, as you give the example, if we're at 70%, are you going to actually see the number of District X is at 70% one year, they're at 72% the next year? Is it a relative grading on the curve kind of score, or is it just an absolute number, or again, is it too early to tell?
It's really too early to tell, but if this helps any, when we start talking, about how they're going to grade us, and if this is where your question goes, maybe this helps. But before we was talking about, how do we score against AYP for our different subgroups?
Right.
Now, either you made it or you didn't. Now, what they have in this grading system is to say, for example, we're responsible, for example, we have to make 5% of growth over those 6-year periods every year. Now, if we didn't make the 5%, in the past, it was always, I didn't make it.
Yeah.
Now, if you made it, you get the 100% of the points you get for that category. If you miss it, and you get 80% of what your growth is supposed to be, they're going to give you 4.
Okay.
And 60% 3.
Which is more realistic, I think.
Which is more realistic,
yeah,
so
okay.
Instead of all or nothing, they're going to kind of gradually scale you up. So you're able to earn points even though you might not have met that target.
Okay.
And as well, and also, if it's cumulative. So let's say we had 5% that we were supposed to do for that year, we get all the points, but we ended up with 7. So the next year, we really only need 3% because of the 2 years we got 10%.
Gotcha.
So it's usually cumulative. So we're able to score as we go along. So to me, it's like a better system.
It's an improvement. Okay.
Yeah.
But there's not going to be a safe harbor or confidence interval.
Not that I'm aware of yet. No, not that I'm aware of yet.
And those were, as you said, using the curve, those are some measures that if you didn't make the absolute cutoff for, say, proficiency, but maybe you made it because X amount of kids moved up X amount of percent or so on,
Right.
and they curved it. And that was reflected on how many schools made AYP, but may not necessarily have all the kids hit proficient, but they made safe harbor. So it's very convoluted.
But the triggers for interventions, like the punishments that came down with NCLB, if you're granted a waiver, you don't, that's not really an issue. They don't really know how to rectify a situation where the school isn't making the targets right now. The federal government still hasn't figured out how they're going to, what interventions they're going to impose. So the triggers that were happening before, administrative takeover, that sort of thing, those triggers aren't into play if you're granted a waiver. So, if you're not doing what they're asking you to do, what's the ramification? We're not sure yet. They're working on it. But I did have a question, and I didn't know how it pertained exactly to our district. One of the waiver benefits, I guess, is you get freedom from the requirement that districts set aside 20% of their Title I funds to provide tutoring and transportation to higher performing schools for students in persistently low performing schools. How does that impact, since we're only 3 buildings big, and I know we provide services to other private schools, how does that impact us at all with the sort of a reallocation of the Title I funds?
Now, from what I gathered, when I'm reading the information we got last week, there's going to be a separate distinction for Title I schools, okay? And not only are they going to get a number like the rest of the schools that are non-Title I schools, but they're also going to get a federal distinction. There's going to be high-performing schools, there's going to be priority schools, and there's going to be then focus schools. And I think if you're going to go into the categories of the focus schools and the priority schools, I think there's going to be some issues that they're going to be dealing with those particular schools because of, the Title I funds are going to be a little bit more of a, I don't want to say it's not punitive, but there's going to be some measures they're going to have to take in those categories.
Right.
So they're not really clear yet exactly how they're going to spell it out.
So we don't know exactly how that impacts
Right,
us
they really
right
haven't
now.
said. Basically, what they've given us so far is pretty much 2 handouts. One kind of explaining it as an overview of what it is, and then they gave us a handout on some frequently asked questions that they have. And, we're kind of waiting now to see exactly, when they roll this whole thing out in about a month, what exactly it does.
Now, with the changeover at the Pennsylvania Department of Education, how scary is that? I mean, it's just, just 'cause I'm kind of panicking, again. But those with more insider knowledge, we are doing all these. We are trying to perform to all these standards. We are jumping through all the hoops. Our leadership has changed again. Does that bode well for the Chapter 4 changes that are proposed? What does it mean for districts who are changing everything, and we've been granting a waiver and we're doing all these things, and our leadership has changed again? And how scary is it?
In the past 3 years, 4 years that I've been working in conjunction with the state of Pennsylvania, I always preface everything with, at this moment in time, because at any moment in time, a signature goes on a piece of paper and it becomes a mandate. So, knowing where they plan on going, we are planning to go where they are planning to go, and we have to shift gears as necessary. I think the good example was, at last year when they put a hold on the Keystone exams, and all of a sudden we get a signature on a piece of paper, and all of a sudden now we have the Keystone exams. They have a plan in place right now for these exams, and a signature on any particular piece of paper in Harrisburg can change the direction that we do almost immediately. And it kind of the same thing happened with the rolling out of Common Core. Common Core was supposed to be in effect as of July 1st of this year. They put a hold on that, and the word that I'm getting is, it's not going to be a very long hold. People from Harrisburg kind of keep telling me to keep moving forward, keep moving forward, keep moving forward. So on that advice, we are doing just that. We're keeping moving forward. So,
But they've changed, they're trying to change the name. It's no longer Common Core, it's going to be Pennsylvania Core. And so the standard, the Pennsylvania Core is not quite the same now as the original intent of the Common Core. And so in terms of simple things like buying textbooks and trying to set curricula and then trying to get supplementals that fit that, if the core is no longer the Common Core and will morph, what are districts to do?
Provides challenges.
It
It
provides
is a challenging thing. From my study of the National Common Core versus the Pennsylvania Common Core versus the anchor standards and eligible content of Pennsylvania, there's not a very big difference.
There's not, right now.
Right.
There's not a big
Right now,
difference.
it's
But I worry,
not a
like,
big
once you start changing the name, then you can start changing what it is. You know, so that is my fear looking down the road.
Yeah, and until we get, we really have to keep moving forward in a direction they have until they tell us to change.
And until we get somebody in place, we're not going to know what those changes are.
Right.
Exactly.
And you got to remember with the Chapter 4 regs, with the Common Core, Pennsylvania emphasized that so that people understood that the core is established by Pennsylvania educators, Pennsylvania committees, so that people understood it wasn't being imposed upon us from the outside.
Well, no, we were part of a consortium. I mean, it wasn't.
Right, but that's why it's the name change.
Right, but
So
I mean,
that
if
they're
you're part of a consortium, you're a willing participant. I mean, you.
But they want to emphasize that it's Pennsylvania, it's our own, by our Commonwealth, and not these outside national standards.
Right, but then again, the danger is then that eventually, if every state takes that position, we're going to be back where we were before, where the standard in Iowa is different than the standard in Massachusetts, is different than the standard of Connecticut, and this was all for naught.
Well, but there could be a lot of what-ifs, though, Naira, but I'm just saying why they changed it from PA Common Core to PA
Right,
Core
but just explain why
was that caveat.
Right, but just explain why I'm nervous looking further down,
Sure, I
the nature of change, the way that it is, and people still need to realize that the PSSA still applies for grades 3 through 8. We're not done with PSSAs, and we're not doing.
It's just that it's aligned to the Pennsylvania Core
Right,
now.
right. So, I mean, if people just think it's no longer PSSAs, it's just Keystones now, PSSAs still hold for grades 3 through 8, and the Keystones are these upper school end-of-year exams.
And we'll see what the future holds.
Right.
Exactly.
If I could be a little bit more clear on, the Pennsylvania Common Core versus the National Common Core. From my study of those two different ideas, it's basically the way they identify the different standards. It's more of a naming system. If you read the document word for word, the standards are almost identical. And Pennsylvania added a few of their own, especially like in grade 3, for example, where they bring money and making change and dealing with that. It's really not part of the National Common Core, but Pennsylvania kind of added that. So that's kind of what we add into the 3rd grade curriculum to make sure that we cover all those kind of things. But for the most part, the two documents are almost language that way is identical.
Right, right now they're, and again, the Common Core is supposed to be, your baseline of what is expected, for standards. And so, right, and so you can add in things. But
Thank you. Let's move on now, if we can.
Dr. Maslin?
I don't have anything to report, just that the teachers, as you have said, are working really hard and putting in a lot of time to make sure that the rooms are ready for the students, and we're ready to start a new school year.
I have to echo Dr. Maslick. They just worked so hard. I think even since last every time I see it, it looks so different. It's really been a change, really looking like a school again. So it's been exciting.
Mr. Lockard?
I could not be happier than to have started to work with the teachers at the high school. They've impressed me in a tremendous number of ways. We were able to roll out our building level goals for the year, which are objectives and creating classrooms with highly engaged, with student engaged lessons and activities that call upon higher level thinking skills. Those are our two main foci in the building. Also, there seems to be a tremendous amount of enthusiasm for the beginning of the year. We've had teachers create a welcoming video for students on the first day, going to talk to the classes. So we're all putting on our green and gold for the first day. And we're really looking forward to kicking off the year, to giving the students a place to look forward to come to and develop on the sense of family that has been so strong.
Great. Any questions? Thanks, Mike.
Okay, those conclude the administrative reports for this evening.
Thank you. We'll move on to some committee reports. Director Wilson, anything from Pathfinder?
Nope, we did not meet this month.
All right. Director Wilkoviak?
Nothing this month.
Shazda, Director Sharippa isn't here, but Joe, are you the alternate? Anything?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Probably didn't have a meeting.
I didn't think so.
They don't
I'll
start
bring
up
one
till
next month.
September.
PSBA and legislative, no?
Just quickly, the Pennsylvania was granted the NCLB waiver. The new nutritional guidelines have gone through with the different caloric limits on snacks and things like that, but still not affecting parties and such like that. And you can go to any website really and find out more about that, or Mrs. Mitchell can talk about that. And I just wanted to highlight some trends that are being talked about in educational circles with full-service community schools, schools trying to address the needs of the whole child, not just the student aspect of the child, to aid success in school. Dental services, mental health services, parent support, increasing guidance counselors at the schools. Those sorts of things are what research is showing is what is impacting at a notable rate student success. And I just wanted to call out that there's this trend, and because of the 21st Century Community Learning Centers grant and Power Hour and all of those things, there are things in this district that we are doing that are considered now, cutting edge and research based and things that you should be doing. And I just wanted to say thank you, Carlynton, for being what we need to be, and continuing to look at ways to improve what we need to be and how we need to be that. So.
Great. Thank you. Any questions? We'll move on now to our agenda items. Under miscellaneous, you'll see two items. The first is the approval of the additional 2013-14 conference and trip requests as presented. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Is a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? There being none, we will vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions, the motion carries. The second item is to establish meeting dates for the remainder of the school year. That is, that they will fall on the first and third Monday of each month, generally speaking. And where is that sheet? With some exceptions. We spoke earlier, and the meeting dates, therefore, would be, as we discussed, there would be one meeting in September on the 16th, that's a Monday. Then on the 1st and 2nd Mondays of October and November, those being the 7th and 21st of October, the 4th and 18th of November, and then finally in December, we would actually meet on the first Thursday, which is December 3rd. I'll have a
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Tuesday.
Tuesday. What did I say? Tuesday.
You said Thursday.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
Tuesday.
Of course I have it.
December 3rd is Tuesday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Tuesday, December 3rd. That's the first day we come back from Thanksgiving break.
That's correct.
Is there such a motion?
So moved.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Now, that December 3rd meeting, that is our reorganization meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
So I always forget that this is an election year, and so would the new folks be coming in for that December meeting?
We have an election in November. Pending the results of that election, there are 4 seats that are up for re-election, up to be filled.
Right.
The 4 individuals who are selected will be seated at that meeting. The terms of those positions currently run through the end of November 30th. So there'll be a swearing in at the organizational meeting. New officers will be selected and appointed. That'll probably be a very quick meeting. We'll do the committees, we'll do all that stuff as well, and then we'll move on to a regular meeting.
I always get it mixed up in my head if it's December or January, but thank you.
Moving, excuse me, moving on. Under finance, you'll see we have, we didn't vote on that, I'm sorry.
That was a discussion
See, I'm
portion.
just not on, I'm not on to that.
I'm throwing you off.
Any further discussion on the motion? There being none, we will vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Motion carries. All right. If I goof up again, I'm quit. I'm giving it up.
Betsy will take it.
All right, Betsy, yeah, you'll,
Look at that hammer.
yeah.
The gap.
Under finance, we have, we'll do the first 5 items, so I will entertain a motion to approve the treasurer's report for the month of July 2013. To approve, number 2, July's bills in the amount of $1,945,926.97. Number 3, Approve the Roslyn Farms Earned Income Tax Audit Report for the year ending June 30th, 2012. Number 4, July 2013 Athletic Fund Report with an ending balance of $3,462.11. Number 5, July 13 Activities Fund Report with an ending balance of $40,079.80. Is there a motion for those 5 items?
So moved.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? If there, please identify the item by its number that you wish to discuss. Director Shriver?
One quick question on number 3.
With regard to Roslyn Farms Earned Income Tax Audit Report.
Correct. I thought by looking at the numbers that there was it called out a 30% drop in collections from 11.
If I may.
Please.
This audit was an audit of the appointed tax collector for Roslyn Farms, Mr. Edward Adams. As you may recall, in January of 2012, the entire system changed. January 2012, a tax collection committee was appointed or enacted by law. Jordan Tax Service became the tax collector for that tax collection committee. Edward Adams continued to collect taxes through December 31st, 2011, that didn't actually receive until later on that particular year. So the reason that there's a 30% drop is we're only looking at Edward Adams in this report. We're not looking at the Southwest Tax Collection Committee in any shape or form. Gotcha. In reality, if you would look at our books, there was no 30% drop. It's just looking at Edward Adams, tax collector, Roslyn Farms.
Good, thank you.
Any further discussion? Any questions on any other item? There being none, we will vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions, the motion carries. Item number 6, I'll entertain a motion to approve the list of change orders for renovation work, as we discussed earlier, for Carnegie, Crafton, and the high school. Those changes being found for Carnegie on page 8 of the report presented to us, for Crafton on page 8 of the report for Crafton that was presented to us, and for the high school track replacement on page 6. Is there a motion for those change orders?
So moved.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I would just ask if we could tally that up and make that information easily, readily available for the public. I don't know if we're in the minutes later or on the website, just so everyone can see what the change orders were easily. And
It's about $60,000, roughly.
Yeah, it's roughly. Yeah.
Roughly $60,000.
Right,
So.
but just so everybody has understanding of what the change orders are, and, I need to check, because we have the information, and we need to check and reassure everybody that it fits into our contingencies, and that we're okay, and just so people know that the money is being spent in a responsible manner. It's all just, accountability.
Well, I think that just what John has mentioned before about the asbestos abatement and how we went ahead and did the work that we would.
Oh, yeah,
need
there's
to do
work
for-
that we're doing ahead
So
that's going to save us money.
That whole
yeah.
change order, that's going to draw that down by, I think, what he said, $30,000.
30,000, I think, something like that,
So-
for one of them anyway, yeah.
So it's not as bad as it may appear,
Well,
or as much money as it may
Right,
appear to be.
but just so people who aren't watching, who
Sure.
just check the website, just have readily available.
That's right, and we'll post it up there so it's clear and understandable.
And this is not unusual for a project of this size to
no.
have change orders like
Yeah,
this.
this is quite
We can have that
expected.
specific information out
Yeah.
there. Any further discussion? There being none, we will vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Abstentions? Motion passes. Under personnel, we have 5 items. I'll entertain a motion first to approve the additions to the day-to-day substitute list for the 13-14 school year. Number 2, to approve the additions to the 13-14 supplemental athletic contract list. Number 3, to award professional employee contracts to the teachers listed below on our agenda as presented to us by the administration, having completed 3 years of satisfactory service to the district under the terms of the Federation bargaining agreement. Number 4, letter of resignation from Laura Burns, assistant high school principal. Number 5, award substitute and long-term substitute positions to the individuals listed below. Do I have a motion for those 5 items?
So moved.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the items? I'd like to say first, if I may, that with regard to number 4, the resignation of Laura Burns, we appreciate her time here, the hard work she's done here, been a part of a lot of our success, and we appreciate that. We'll miss her. We certainly wish her success as she takes her career to a new, and takes another step in her career. She's moving on to Pine Richland. Lost that for a moment there, yeah. So we're going to eagerly watch her as she continues to develop and evolve as an administrator in education. And again, Laura, good luck to you. Any further discussion on the items? Yes, ma'am.
I just was wanting clarification. On the last position listed, it says RTL and then...
Which number?
RTI.
Oh, RTI, okay.
Oh, okay, number 5.
And DD means? I need an interpreter.
Day to day.
Oh, day to day, okay, thank you.
And this is with regard to the substitute and long-term substitute positions.
Day to day.
Any further discussion? There being none, we will vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions, the motion carries. Under Student Services, I'll entertain a motion to approve the 13-14 Carnegie and Crafton Elementary Student Handbook as submitted. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? There being none, we will vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstentions, the motion carries. That concludes our agended business. Moving on to old business. Is there any old business the director would like to bring up at this point? Director Yuga.
In reference to the minutes from the last meeting, it says, Mr. Pfeiffer was directed to provide a laundry list of items pertaining to the current truck to the maintenance foreman, John Recchio, to affirm a definite need for a new truck before bringing the motion to the table again. Was any information brought forward about this truck?
Yes, the information that we're looking for the truck, and it's in the garage now over at Alice, Texaco, because they've worked with our trucks in Bridgeville. And they've worked with Carlynton District vehicles for 35 years. And the items that they're looking at, they're going to do an inspection on it as board directed. But they're looking at the front end, either needs an alignment or is out of whack at the front end. The wheel wells are rusted out, the bumpers are rusted out, there's a hole in the front seat, and there's issues with the steering wheel sticking. And that's before the inspection. But that's where the truck is now currently. We're waiting to get an inspection report back from them. But Johnny, after our last meeting, Johnny took it down here.
Not to a Ford dealer?
No, he took it to, he'd already had it there at Alice, Texaco. Because again, they've worked with our trucks and our vehicles in the past, and we've worked with them for a long time.
Well, I'm a little disgruntled that it was not taken to a Ford dealership. And in the future, I would prefer that our vehicles are looked at by professional Ford certified dealerships. Thank you.
I have something under old business. Anybody else? Anything at this point?
I have one thing.
Yes, sir.
Being that we had an update today for the progress of the school buildings, and if you go to our website, and you can click here, so you can see the actual, what was the previous update for July. I'd like to see that put on the website as soon as possible, so that our residents, students, everybody can take a look at the most current information that we have available.
And that could include the change orders as Director Shell had requested as well. That'd be a great idea. Can we do that? Fantastic. I'd like to make a motion then to take from the table the motion that had been tabled at our last meeting with regard to the purchase of the truck. So my motion is to take from the table the motion to purchase the 2014 Ford F-350 truck. Is there a second for my motion? And this is to take it from the table. Is there a second for my motion to take it from the table?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Again, this is just to bring it up to the floor to have the discussion, taking it from the table. All right? Everybody's looking at me a bit askance.
So this just opens it up for discussion.
This, we have a motion on the table. It kind of froze it. I'm saying let's unfreeze it to revisit it again. That's what this motion is. Doesn't approve it. It's just saying, let's vote on it. So unless there's any discussion, I'd ask for a roll call vote on the motion to take it from the table.
I have some discussion. Before we add any more confusion to this situation, I think we should get the information back before we don't need a truck at this moment. We can hold off for another month.
I'd ask that, I'd suggest that that is appropriate discussion for the motion itself on the purchase, not the table. Not the motion to take it from the table.
Well, can it stay tabled until we get some information as to the condition of this truck?
I'm moving to bring it from the table. I'd like to have that discussion now. If we need more information, then let's talk about, and as a group decide that that's what we want to do. But at this point, the motion sits there to remove it from the table. Any further discussion?
And so ultimately, this would just open it up for further discussion.
Well, you're voting as to whether or not, to talk about whether or not we should buy the truck.
Right.
It's no longer on table.
All right?
Yeah, just
So,
to-
roll call vote, please?
Director Apple,
Yes.
Director Shaw,
Yes.
Director Cicero,
Yes.
Director Wilson,
Yes.
Director Shriver,
Yes.
Director Walkowiak,
Yes.
Director Hugan.
I don't understand. I'm going to abstain.
Director Russo.
Yes. All right, the motion has now been brought from the table. There is now a motion on the floor. That motion is to, in fact, make the purchase of the truck that we discussed last week. That is the 2014 Ford F-350 truck for the maintenance department at a cost not to exceed $29,491. The price includes a snow plow and trailer hookup. Now, this is, you had some questions, you had some discussion on this that you wanted to pursue.
The discussion was, I wanted more information as to what a third party would evaluate this truck, and also they were to give us a price for a trade, a value, and I don't have any of that information.
I happen to be at the junior high soccer games prior to this meeting, where I saw Mr. Rickon and talked briefly to him about the truck. And something he said to me that I thought poignant was that this truck's got 16 years of snow plowing behind it. And apparently that, I'm not an expert in this area, but from what I understand, that puts a lot of wear and tear on the truck. So that's part of what we're looking at in terms of this truck, and just the need to replace it.
But in terms of the process, now, I was not here for the last meeting. I've only read the minutes. So I might be interpreting this wrong, but my understanding was that it was tabled and you were going to get more information, and that's what I understood, that there was going to be a laundry list presented of what the needs of the truck were and all that.
Mr. Pfeiffer, I think.
Right, and we're waiting to get the
And
back.
we're waiting to get back. So, for me right now, for the sake of process, to wait until that information is complete, then have this discussion on the vote, once all board members are satisfied that the information that they requested has been received. And so, I'm willing to have this discussion right now, but my feeling is that if I could be reading the minutes incorrectly of what actually happened at the meeting, but my understanding from the minutes was that we're going to get the information, Mr. Pfeiffer was going to then present that information, and that this discussion was going to happen at that point. And so,
Well, I think there's a couple things. The need for the truck, which John Riccio has expressed, the need for the truck. We've put it off for a year. It's a 1996.
1996.
Okay, who here has a car they're driving that's a 1996 that's plowed?
I just got rid of an 86.
I know, a year ago I got rid of a 93, so.
Did you plow?
I drove in the snow, I didn't plow.
From
But
what Mr. Pfeiffer read, I think the truck has serious concerns. So I think the truck needs to be replaced. You're not going to put any more money into that truck. Number two, the concern was how John had indicated he was buying it. And there is a program out there that he is using that's I think the government has some kind of agreement that's how you purchase it. So it's not like you or I going to a car dealership and buying it off the lot. And bickering about a trade-in and that kind of thing. So he's going through, you know, a purchasing program that we've used before, and it's probably the best way for a school district to purchase a vehicle.
It's cheaper than it would be for either you or I to go out there and
Right.
purchase the truck.
So, you know, in my mind, I'm ready to vote. In my mind, I'm ready to vote. I think
Well,
he's.
let me make one point, though. I had asked, one of the questions I had asked was there a 2013 new truck available? I haven't heard back an answer on that. That's something that I recall.
Well, Johnny did say this is a 2013 truck that they're bidding on, even though it had 2014 in initial minutes.
Well, geez, that would have been nice to know.
I just think, and then again, I'm coming from not being at the last meeting, and in terms of just the process and what the expectation I had for this topic was that the information would be there, and then at that point we would have the discussion.
Right, after we got the inspection.
Right, and so that inspection has not happened yet, and so, you know, I'm
There's another point that's, I don't know if it's in the minutes or not, but the other point was, we had a discussion, and I believe, Gary, you had stated that Johnny felt that he could take this cost of roughly $30,000 and reduce it somewhere else. And I think there was a question along the lines of, well, where would that come from? What would he not spend money on this year that wouldn't increase the budget, being that this was not budgeted? So the budget would remain the same. So do we have an answer on that?
Yeah, when I spoke to Johnny about that also, he said initially they put in about $30,000 for sidewalk replacement and repair. And that he felt the
Which needs to be
sidewalks-
done. After looking at the high school sidewalks, I think there's some repair that needs to be done, especially curbing and sidewalks.
Well, he thought that could hold off, and they could hold off in that a year and then use that money that was budgeted for the sidewalks to put it for the trucks.
Well, and I just got rid of a 1997 car. And the reason I did was because my mechanic said everything was rusted, like the list he just read, and that was an unsafe for me to continue, even though the engine.
Well, when do you expect the report back from the inspection company?
I'm hoping I'll have
I
it
mean, if
for
the
our next
trucks,
meeting.
well, I would expect that it would be there before the
Before
next
that.
meeting. Now, I guess one of the dangers that you have is if you have it in there, it has a sticker on it, correct? We're not taking it in for a safety inspection. It's for a look-see to determine what the condition of the vehicle is and what type of costs need to be put into it so that it could provide service to us for whatever time they determine that it can.
And I think Johnny's concerned too with a truck like that, because it's a municipal truck, that there's going to be a leeway. You just can't go to the lot and pick it up. You got to order one, and then it probably takes about a month to get one in.
Is there any danger that this truck, or any concern, not danger, any concern that this truck wouldn't come back to us and would have to be repaired, being that there are issues that could keep it off the road? Is that a possibility?
Johnny has mentioned a safety issue that he thinks would be a hazard.
Okay. So it was functioning when he
Right.
took it in?
I think he's worried about this upcoming winter.
Sure. Understand.
So our next meeting is September
16th.
If I could make a quick comment, I'm with Betsy in that I believe that we needed two, but I also recognize that some very valid questions have been asked, and I think maybe as a process recommendation to your team, Gary, if somebody needs something from us, you can give them some guidance about, hey, if you're coming to us asking us for a $30,000 piece of equipment, here's the thought process you might want to go through, Mr. Smith or Ms. Jones. They're going to ask these kinds of questions about your request. So come to us not only with your request, but then the background information and the laundry list of things that we can expect to be asking about in advance, or I guess in this case, as some follow-up questions have been asked, can they come back to us with a mini report saying, you know, answers to some of these questions, and that just takes care of it. You don't have to kind of remember all the details and worry
Sure.
about it. It puts a burden on you on details that, you know, aren't important for your job, but I think maybe are reasonable for us to make an intelligent decision. So just a quick comment.
But, for now, for me, having this discussion is great, but in terms of making a final vote, and for me, it doesn't seem like we're there yet, given the fact that there are questions that board members still have outstanding, and based on the understanding that was represented in the minutes, that there would be some sort of answer, and then the motion would be pulled from the table.
Okay, so what is unanswered? Have Gary write down the questions that need to be answered.
I think all it is just
No,
the...
what is unanswered? Just
Right, so that...
Who has a question, and have Gary write it down.
So you had a
No,
question.
let Sandra give Gary her question.
Okay.
Please.
Well, I did at the last meeting, Betsy.
What is not been
At this
answered after this
point,
discussion?
for
We've had a
clarity,
little
I
bit of
think is what we're
discussion.
saying.
Well, first of all, if they've taken the truck to a reputable dealership,
Well,
and
Sandra, I imagine this dealership has...
Oh, okay, let me finish.
...the paperwork that he's certified.
I would like to hear what it is, and I haven't heard that. Another thing, too, this truck was not in the budget, so where do we pull the money from to get this? And isn't everybody supposed to go along the bylines of staying within a budget? That's why we have one. And to just all of a sudden, I need a $30,000 truck, let's find out why. Is it absolutely worthless to this district anymore? Can it be repaired?
Well, I believe Mr. Recchio has at least presented to this board that the truck is in such a condition that it is not worth repairing, that it is necessary to replace it. Now, if there are some specific things...
Well, let me just ask a point of discussion question. Why wasn't this thought about when the budget was being determined?
Well, that's another...
It was in the budget originally. Mr. Recchio has asked for that. It was removed from the budget before it got to the board.
Right. And it was in the budget a year ago, too.
And why was it removed from the budget before it came to the board?
I can't answer that question.
Don't know.
Who has knowledge of why that was
We
removed?
shifted back to the original spending levels that we had before to try to keep within parameters. And that's why we did it. So Johnny pulled it out, and it was looking for other places if we really had to have one, like the sidewalk repair, that you could do that.
So it was prioritized at the time, and now the priorities changed,
Right.
is what you're saying?
Right, we cut back the original spending levels out of concern that came up in some of the summer meetings that we had here about the spending. So that's why we initially pulled it.
And when was...
He's becoming more concerned as the wear and tear goes on the truck, if it's gonna make it through another winter. So that's why it came back up.
Well, I'm curious as to what would happen if say, we don't end up getting the truck and he has to use this thing again for another year and it breaks down and there's a significant amount of snow. Where would we be then? Do we have a contingency plan?
There's
Well, you'd have
always
to contract those
contractors.
services.
You'd have to call a
Yeah.
contractor. And then on a significant snow day, you're gonna have someone come over to our place first because we start earlier? Or
I mean, that
go
can happen at any
earlier?
time, Joe. You could have a new
The regular
vehicle that can
clients.
break down.
That's my
So-
concern.
So the point that you make as far as a contingency, I think that whether you have a new vehicle or an old vehicle, I think that contingency should be there.
Sure.
Because if
Yeah.
you don't have that contingency, I mean,
Yeah,
it
right,
can happen
absolutely.
at any time.
And when are you more likely to use that contingency? When a vehicle that's 16 years old? Or?
Oh, no doubt about it. But I mean, I think it's a valid point that you made, because new vehicles break down, not as frequent.
It's true.
But they do break down.
What is the I guess, collateral damage of waiting until we, one, hear back from the garage, and two, figure out in a clear and written down manner where the money is going to come from, and we will be in agreement that we'll pull it from the sidewalk and we're not going to do the sidewalks, and to have that discussion, because I'm not sure we're there yet either in terms of paying for this. So what is the collateral damage of waiting potentially until September 16th to have this discussion and this vote and
I would put it another way. In my opinion, this is going to happen. We're buying this truck. We need this truck, in my opinion.
But we need to,
So
we
I
need to
think-
figure some things out.
Then what I submit, though, is what is the collateral damage of just buying the truck because we need it? And if we want to figure out things with the budget, we can just identify some things subsequently and say we're not going to pay for those things, or we can do anything else. It just seems to me that we're getting, again, this is my opinion. I had the opportunity to talk to Mr. Recchio and some others about the truck, and it just seems clear to me that given the condition, given the stress it's been put through over the years, it just should be done. Let's just do it. Let's get it. Let's be done with it. We want to cut 30,000 elsewhere from the budget. We don't have to do that right now. We can identify other areas and say we're not going to spend that.
I personally would rather have those discussions up front, and what my gut says is that we need a new truck, right? But just because, for the sake of process, and I'm going to say this again, just for the integrity of how the board operates, if a board directors wait, and it's in, and again, correct me if what is reflected in the minutes didn't happen, because I wasn't here, so I don't know because sometimes what's reflected in the minutes, it's what actually happened is just just somehow different with any set of minutes.
Well, I could tell you, Naira, the only way that I would agree with that is if we made a commitment that there would be a vote at that next meeting, and we vote one way or the other, and it's done, because we can't continue to wait.
Right, and I think
That's the issue at hand.
I think that's it. I think you just wait until we have
You
the
can't
information
continue to wait.
requested.
I
We
would say
talk
that
about
if
the-
in fact Gary had the report tonight, I think Saundra's questions would have been answered.
Right.
Okay, and that serves her peace of mind, regardless of what the rest of us think.
Right, and so I'm with you. I'm not for prolonging this and prolonging this and prolonging this. Let us. What I want is
It has,
to have,
it has to come to an end.
I want to have that information about the final report. I want to have the information of this is our plan to how we're going to pay for this. So there's no last minute. Oh well, we didn't see that coming, and we're not really going to be able to do that.
The only thing that in hindsight's 2020, believe me, I do it all the time. Everybody does it. The only thing that bothers me is that we pick sidewalks over the truck. Even though we asked for a truck last year, we picked sidewalks this year whenever it came to budget cuts, and now we're back to the truck. I just thought that, we should have prioritized things a little better, and maybe we wouldn't be having this discussion because it would have been in the budget, and we wouldn't have to go 3 meetings discussing this ad nauseum.
Can we have the discussion now then that we're not going to do sidewalks and that's how we're going to pay for the truck, and so that part of it is taken care of? Boom.
We can do whatever, but
one of the things we talked about last time that maybe not reflected in the minutes and you weren't here for was that there was some talk about financing the vehicle instead of just paying for the thing flat out 30 grand, here you go. And in that case, it's not 30,000 out of the budget. It's if you do it over 5 years, it's what, $6,000
Right, but
plus
still that we have we're taking something out of the budget to
That's
pay
correct,
for that.
but I think it's easier to find 6,000 than 30,000.
Right, yeah.
And-
But let us have that discussion. Let us have the plan that this is what we're. So it's just.
I think we're overcomplicating things. And I think that would actually, if you look at our budget, not from year to year, but as a long-range 5 or 10-year thing, then that just costs us more money. Because in the course of 5 or 6 or 7 years, it gets paid for either way. But if we do it over time, there's an interest component as well.
Well, that's the cost of money, though, and I mean, right now, the interest rate's probably pretty nominal. I mean, 2.5%, maybe 3%.
Well, and we're getting, Kirby, what's Pliget, like 0.12%?
21 basis points, which is 0.0021.
I mean, we're getting nothing on our money. So why pay 2.5%?
Well, I'm talking about the budget. And I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm just saying, if it's a matter of robbing Peter to pay Paul, well, maybe we don't have to take so much out of Peter.
I think I applaud the directors who look at our budget and want to hold the district to it in order to be responsible. But it is a plan. It is a plan, and things come up and things change. And so that's why I personally am not at all uncomfortable about just committing to doing what I think we ultimately have to do. And, this is just paralysis through analysis.
For me,
So,
I would like to have agreement first on how we're going to pay for it.
well,
I mean, it's just, you talk about that's my personal
Okay.
preference. What the board decides is what the board decides.
Well, Mr. Recchio's made a recommendation. I mean, if we want to go with something like that, that's fine. I don't know what the conditions of those sidewalks are, so I'm not willing to commit to not spending money on those. I don't have that budget here to be able to review the entire thing. We can identify areas. They don't have to even be in Mr. Recchio's area. We can identify areas anyway. And I would also submit that we tend to be very conservative in our budgets. I'm sure our business manager would agree that we tend to underestimate revenues and overestimate expenditures to be on the safe side. Is that fair to say? So I think that we can rest with some great assurance that we're not going to come in over budget, even with this acquisition. That the money is built in there.
But I would, for me personally, I would still like to, if we're not going to take it from the sidewalks, let us look at it and then come up with a plan. This is potentially where we're going to get the money from, and everyone's okay with that.
We have, Betsy asked about the fund balance. It's not like we don't have the money there. We have the money. The budget's one thing, obviously, but I mean, so it's not a discussion as to whether or not we have money to take it. It's about whether or not we've planned to spend that amount of money in the course of this year. So, it's just, I mean, there's a motion there. If folks want to table a motion again, they have a right to bring that up as a motion. I'm perfectly comfortable voting now. I think it makes sense to do it. Let's just be done with it and move forward. If we want to identify some areas for savings, whether it's for this truck or just fiscal prudency, let's do it. Let's do it. We don't have to spend stuff just because it's in the budget.
But I'd like to call it out and but also just, was it the board's feeling that, my interpretation of the minutes, was that how the board felt, that they were going to get the information and then bring the issue back?
Yes.
Because that is a sticking point for me for this discussion right now and this vote right now. If the understanding was you're going to get the information and then have this discussion, can we wait, get the information, and then have this discussion, and then we don't have to speak in hypotheticals? This is what the garage says. We either as a board accept it or don't accept it. But just my sticking point is that my feeling was that the understanding was we're going to get the information first and then have this discussion.
So we understand. I would just submit also, do we hold Mr. Recchio's opinion in so little regard that we can't rely on that?
But that is a separate issue, because his opinion was not in the minutes so much as what the course of action of this board was going to be was that, and certainly I do not hold his opinion in so little regard. I mean, and it's.
And I didn't mean to suggest you personally. I just meant in terms of the whole discussion about this.
Right, but the problem is, and again, this is you know how I get with sometimes, right? But for me, one of the points here is that the discussion was going to happen again once the information was gathered, and just
there. All right, there's a motion on the table. We can have a vote on that. You can vote how you choose. Anyone can choose to table the motion again if they want to, and we can put it off to the next meeting. I think we've had the discussion we need to have specifically on this matter.
Wait a minute. There's a motion.
The motion is now on the floor. It can be tabled again. It is. We voted to take it off the table, which in essence brings it back to life, and it's as if we made a motion and seconded
so it doesn't need
at
to
this
be
meeting.
nominated.
No, it's there.
All right.
It's there.
We're in the discussion
we brought
phase at this
back the
point.
motion from the last meeting.
You're either going to vote on it or you're going to table it.
Gotcha. No. It was already seconded at the last meeting, so it was a viable motion. So, I mean, I put it out there. I mean, either we table it on the motion of a director in a second, or we vote.
So maybe Ray made an implicit motion, not a formal motion, but an implicit motion to say he would like to see a vote at the latest by the next meeting, and the plan might be to assemble.
That's the only way I'd agree not to vote on it at this point.
Right.
I mean, we have to come to conclusion, because
Agreed.
we can't wait for, another 2 weeks we have to get a report. I mean, that report has to come in, the truck's in the shop.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? If that satisfies Saunders' concerns, then if we commit to voting at the next meeting, one way or the other, just whatever your feelings are concerning this, then let's do it.
Well, how much would the repairs have to amount to?
I think that's an individual judgment. I mean, I know what I think. I'm sure you know what you think. But next meeting, I would come prepared to vote one way or the other, regardless of the, the condition of the vehicle. I mean, it may come back and they're saying, you know what, any money you're putting into this is just a waste of time, it's a waste of money. If we have that confirmation, which is what Sandra asked for, then I think it's a no-brainer.
It's a yes vote.
Absolutely. If we're going to put $10,000 into a vehicle that's worth $3,000, it's ridiculous. I mean, think about it.
Even putting $3,000 in the vehicle worth $3,000.
Exactly. You know what I
It's
mean?
ridiculous.
So,
Well, we will either vote or we will entertain a motion to table.
the pleasure of the board. I'll sit here and wait.
Well, I'm trying to gauge
Let's either table it or vote on it.
I'm
Let's
trying
either
to gauge the feeling of most people on the board. I mean, because for me, the only sticking point, I know how I feel
Are you
about
making
this.
a motion to table?
I'm,
Is anyone here making a motion to table? If not, I'm going to call for roll call on this motion. Is there such a motion to table? Will the secretary please call a roll?
Yep, I'm not going to make that motion.
Director Apple.
Yes.
Director Hugan.
No.
Director Shell.
No.
Director Shriver.
I believe we need the truck, but I am not happy with the process that we went through with this motion, so I'm going to vote no.
Director Tesoro.
Yes.
Director Walkowiak.
No.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
Director Russo.
Yes. The vote is 4-4, the motion fails. Any other item under old business?
Oh, that was fruitful.
No? We're not getting the truck, I guess.
Next week.
But
Next
on the
meeting.
16th, can we make that commitment that Ray asked for?
Is there any other,
That's all I would ask, that the report comes, we make a decision at that point.
We
We'll take a
can
vote.
reintroduce it at that point.
Absolutely.
prevailing
Yeah.
any other old business?
Yes, just to clarify, we can reintroduce this.
It's called a
at
motion
that
to
point.
reconsider. Anyone who voted on the prevailing side, that is anyone who voted no, may make the motion to reconsider. Is there any other?
Rest assured, there will be a motion
Well-
at the
Right,
next
yes,
meeting.
there will be.
Is there any other old business? If not, we're moving on to new business. Is there any new business?
Yes.
Yes.
In our packets, we had the PSBA information. Under this, you'll notice very important PSBA stuff. And what they want is to know whether or not we are going to appoint a delegate and who the delegate might be. And I'm just encouraging us to make sure we give this some thought. We have, well, actually, you're supposed to do it by, I think, September 13th.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
extended the deadline to the 13th.
So we will be
We either do it today or we don't do it.
back to it.
Thanks, I got me.
But I want to encourage, I would really like to see us send somebody.
Who would like to go?
Huh?
Who would like to go?
Yeah, who would like to go?
Do we have a volunteer?
That's too bad.
I'm too busy this time.
Yeah, I'm too busy at this point, too. I can't take the time away.
Anything else, Sharon?
Nope.
Any other new business?
Yeah.
There being no new business, we'll move on to open forum. Anyone from the audience is your opportunity. Well, the young lady sitting down first.
Real fast, and won't take as long as the truck.
Thank you.
I had a question when John was speaking about the door, ordering the doors and ordering the hardware. Were those for the classrooms and for the outside doors? Because he was talking about having the ID cards or
Both.
whatever.
We're getting both.
Right. Well, my question was, did anybody investigate the facial recognition way of security instead of ID cards?
I don't believe we looked into that.
No.
Is there a
No. Wasn't brought up, wasn't thought of. I mean, I could tell you that. I didn't think of it. We have, my place of employment is several. We use the cards and we use them very successfully. And what you're able to do is you're actually able to more or less control the times of access and so forth. And as John had stated, you know when people come and you know when people go. You know how many times that door has been opened, but it wasn't even a recommendation from our construction manager, even when we had the discussions with with Thomas and Williamson. So I don't believe it was a consideration.
No, I don't think so. Sorry?
No.
You can do the same thing with the facial recognition. I'm just thinking with all the people that need cards and the people accidentally using them or whatever.
Well, they can be turned off if they are lost and if they're reported.
I can tell you that I've had a little bit of exposure with biometrics in my professional life, and the cost of whether it's a finger biometric or facial recognition or iris or eye recognition or whatever is an exponential cost difference. So the key fobs or the card swipes are relatively inexpensive, and if you lose one, it's $5 or $10 or whatever. But the biometric stuff is tenfold the cost. So the only places right now that are doing biometrics are like banks that have millions of dollars of
I was just curious. I didn't know if that was an option.
I think it is, but I think from a financial perspective, I wouldn't recommend it because I just don't think we have the need. I think the card swipe should give us the security that is necessary.
I mean, I kind of, you're trying to think of those things, but it was just a feeling that it was cost prohibitive, which is why I didn't push it or anything. So
We also have a hand swipe for those that need to clock in and out. And I can tell you there are certain employees that it does not work on.
Yeah.
And they can't explain it.
Yeah.
So.
Antrice, you would?
Yeah, just really quick as well, even quicker than that. But my son attended, so kudos to Carlynton and Carnegie Elementary. My son attended the reading program with Mr. Harowitz and Mrs. Harry, and he also did the Duquesne reading program. And he much rather liked the reading program. He had to go to every single day in the summer, half day, miss half his field trips every day for a whole month, going there to do the program with Carnegie Elementary than he did to go to Duquesne on just one day a week. He just fell into one-on-one. The iPads that they used was very interactive. So I was going to say kudos to you guys and what you guys are doing to make a child that's 9 years old enjoy going to a reading program.
In the summer.
In the summer.
I almost cried when it was all reading. So very, very good job.
Wow.
Please let them know.
Great to hear.
Thank you.
Nice to hear, thank you.
Yes, sir. You, sir.
Hi, my name is Alex Popacek. I'm a junior here at Carlynton. You guys were talking about upgrading the hardware and that sort of thing with the doors. My concern is this. I'm a part of this group of 4 guys in the entire district that whenever there's some sort of event at the auditorium or whatever, we are the ones that end up working the tech for that. So my question is, how is the whole key system going to work? Is there going to be some consideration for us? Is our advisor going to have a different key? Did you guys have a plan for that? And
Do you guys have keys currently?
No.
So an adult gets you into wherever you need to be.
Yes.
Same thing will happen.
Our concern is what if Mr. Peterson's not
Yeah, well,
there?
like, if Mr. Peterson's not there.
If he's
no
not
one
there,
else
there
is
is
there.
no tech. There is no sound, no lights, no nothing. If he's not there for some sort of reason.
And that's the way it is now?
Yeah, so like we're doing it later.
It'll only improve. No, I mean, and
That's
really
great
because
that they're concerned.
this is something new. We will develop policies and procedures how to manage things, but I can tell you it's going to be easier to do.
Like,
So,
it's really hard for us to do anything. Because, like, whenever he was on vacation.
sure.
What was that called? Comedy?
Yeah, there was one specific event where the YMCA campaign came in, and they apparently did not alert whoever does scheduling or whatever, Mr. Peterson, that the event was going on, and as a result, Mr. Riccio had to call Mr. Peterson, and he was on vacation, so we had no way of doing that. But
I would say your issue is probably one more related to your in relation with Mr. Peterson and setting up schedules than it is whether it's a key or a fob. Yes, sir.
Gentlemen, I'd be happy to sit down with you in my office.
Make it happen.
There you go.
Yes, Mr. Cozy?
Yes, just end real quick, I'd just like to say, on behalf of the staff, how much we appreciate Mrs. Burns' time here at Carlynton, and in particular admired her work over the past year as we kind of went through a different kind of time. And if I can speak for the staff, we wish her well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Quick question. Did you say the truck is being looked at in Bridgeville?
That's what Johnny told me.
Right.
well, let me ask you this, is that a contract bid? And can you check on that for next meeting? Is the Greenfield Service Station bid on that and we award a contract to that?
So it's my understanding from John that these guys have worked with the district X amount of years to go over that.
And I understand that, but let me tell you something, and I'm sure there's probably somebody knew somebody back then and they just had the job since then, but if it's not a contract bid, I would recommend with this board to find a contract bid and allow people in craft, allow businesses in Crafton and Carnegie to bid on that contract, because I'd rather the money stay in the district if we get the prices.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's a good point, Jack. Thank
Always
you.
want to try to keep it within the
Well
district.
beyond anybody
Right.
on this board's doing. 35 years, I don't think anybody served 35 years.
Betsy.
Feels that way. Anything else under open forum by either anyone in the audience or any director? Seeing no one, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.